Slash reads Ozzy Osbourne's last letter and can't hold back the tears. 2 days after Ozzy Osbourne's death on July 22, 2025, a letter arrived at Slash's Los Angeles home that would completely break down one of rock's most stoic figures. The envelope, addressed in Ozzy's distinctive handwriting and marked for Slash "Open after my death," contained words so profound and unexpected that the legendary Guns N' Roses guitarist found himself sobbing uncontrollably as he read what would be revealed as Ozzy's final written message to a fellow musician. The letter, written just 1 week before Ozzy's death from acute myocardial infarction, revealed secrets about their friendship that even those closest to both musicians never knew existed. What Ozzy chose to share in his final communication with Slash exposed the depth of mentorship, love, and musical brotherhood that had existed between the Prince of Darkness and one of rock's greatest guitarists for over 3 decades. "I wasn't expecting anything like this," Slash revealed in an exclusive interview, his voice still heavy with emotion weeks after receiving the letter. "Ozzy and I had worked together. We were friends, but I had no idea he felt this way about our relationship or that I had played such an important role in his life." Reading his words was one of the most overwhelming experiences I've ever had. The letter arrived through Ozzy's attorney along with similar personal messages that had been sent to a select group of musicians who had been important to the Prince of Darkness throughout his career. But according to Slash, his letter contained revelations that were both deeply personal and professionally shocking, written in Ozzy's own hand, despite the difficulty his Parkinson's disease caused with fine motor control. If Slash's emotional response to Ozzy's final letter is moving you as much as it's moving us, please show your support with a like. Some final messages deserve to be heard and remembered. "The first thing that hit me was seeing his handwriting," Slash said, describing the moment he opened the envelope with trembling hands. "It was shaky because of the Parkinson's, but it was definitely him. You could see where he had to stop and restart certain words, where his hand had cramped up. He had taken the time to write this by hand, which must have been incredibly difficult and painful for him in his condition. That alone showed me how important this message was to him." The letter began with Ozzy addressing Slash by a nickname that only he had ever used, Guitar God, a term of endearment that had started as a joke during their collaborations, but had become Ozzy's genuine expression of respect for Slash's musical abilities and his mastery of an instrument that Ozzy himself had never learned to play. "He started the letter by calling me Guitar God, which always made me laugh when he said it in person," Slash recalled, a bittersweet smile crossing his face. "But reading it in his final letter, knowing he was saying goodbye, it hit me completely differently. It wasn't just a nickname anymore. It was his way of telling me how much he respected my music and how much he admired something he could never do himself." What followed was a revelation that stunned Slash and would later surprise the entire rock community when he decided to share it publicly. Ozzy revealed that their collaboration on the song "Mama, I'm Coming Home" had saved his career during one of the darkest periods of his life, and that Slash's guitar work in the track had reminded him why he loved making music even though he himself had never been able to create those sounds. "He told me that when we worked on Mama, I'm Coming Home, he was seriously considering retiring from music," Slash revealed, his voice growing quiet with the weight of this confession. He said he had lost his passion, that he was going through the motions, that he wasn't sure he had anything left to offer as just a vocalist, but hearing my guitar parts on that song reminded him of the magic that could happen when the right musicians connected and how powerful his voice could be when paired with the right musical foundation. The collaboration Ozzy was referring to had taken place in the early 1990s when Slash was at the height of his fame with Guns N' Roses. Despite his incredibly busy schedule, he had agreed to contribute guitar work to Ozzy's album, not realizing the profound impact it would have on the veteran singer who had spent his entire career depending on guitarists to bring his musical visions to life. "I just thought I was doing a favor for a legend," Slash said, shaking his head at the memory. "I went into the studio, laid down some tracks, worked with him on arrangements, and that was it. I had no idea that Ozzy was struggling with his motivation or that our collaboration meant so much to him. He never let on that he was having doubts about his career or feeling insecure about his role as a frontman who couldn't play instruments." But Ozzy's letter revealed that Slash's enthusiasm and musical innovation during those recording sessions had rekindled his own passion for creating music. He described watching Slash work in the studio as a reminder of why he had fallen in love with rock and roll in the first place. Despite never being able to create the instrumental magic himself, he wrote that watching me play reminded him of himself when he was young and hungry for music, even though he could only contribute through his voice. Shared his voice breaking slightly. He said that my energy and creativity had been infectious, that it had reminded him that music was supposed to be fun and magical, not just a job or an obligation. He told me that seeing my passion for the guitar made him remember his own passion for singing. The letter continued with even more surprising revelations about their relationship and how it had affected Ozzy's understanding of his own role in music. Ozzy confessed that he had been secretly studying Slash's guitar technique and stage presence for years, not because he wanted to learn to play. He acknowledged that ship had sailed long ago, but because he wanted to understand how instrumental mastery could enhance high-sound vocal performances. He told me that he had been watching my performances and trying to understand what made me so excited about music, or revealed. Clearly moved by this admission, he said that my joy while playing guitar was something he wanted to capture in his own stage presence as a vocalist. I never knew he was paying that much attention to how I performed, or that he was using my energy to improve his own shows. This revelation was particularly meaningful to Slash because it reversed the traditional mentor-student relationship he had assumed existed between them, while he had always looked up to Ozzy as a pioneer and inspiration. Learning that the feeling was mutual despite their different roles in music created a new understanding of their friendship. I always thought of Ozzy as the master and myself as the student, Slash explained, wiping away tears that had started flowing again. But his letter revealed that we had been learning from each other all along. He was teaching me about longevity and survival in the music business, while I was apparently teaching him about maintaining passion and excitement for the art form, even though we expressed that passion through completely different instruments. The letter also revealed Ozzy's deep admiration for Slash's musical abilities. Written from the perspective of someone who had worked with countless guitarists throughout his career, but had never been able to create those sounds himself, Ozzy described feeling a mixture of awe and vicarious joy when watching Slash play, living through the guitarist's mastery of an instrument he had always wished he could understand. He wrote about how he lived vicariously through the guitarists he worked with, but that watching me play was different, Slash said. He said that my relationship with the guitar reminded him of his relationship with his voice. It was pure instinct and emotion, not just technical skill. That meant everything to me, coming from someone who had worked with so many incredible guitarists, but could only contribute through his vocals. The most emotional part of the letter came when Ozzy addressed Slash's struggles with addiction, something they had never discussed directly, but which Ozzy had observed from a distance with deep concern and understanding. Having fought his own battles with substances for decades, he wrote about watching me go through my darkest periods with drugs and alcohol, Slash said, tears forming in his eyes again. He said that seeing me eventually get clean had given him hope during his own relapses, that my recovery had reminded him that it was possible to overcome addiction and still create great music. He understood that struggle in a way that only someone who had been there could understand. This revelation was particularly powerful for Slash because he had always felt that his addiction issues were a source of shame and weakness. Learning that his recovery had inspired someone he respected so deeply, someone who had faced similar demons, transformed his understanding of his own journey and gave new meaning to his struggles. I never thought of my recovery as inspiring to anyone else, Slash admitted, his voice heavy with emotion. I was just trying to survive, trying to save my own life and my ability to play music. But Ozzy saw it as something heroic, something that gave him strength when he was struggling with his own demons. That completely changed how I think about that period of my life. The letter also revealed that Ozzy had been following Slash's career closely throughout the decades, celebrating his successes and worrying about his challenges as if he were a proud father watching his son navigate the music industry. That I had almost forgotten about, Slash revealed. Solos from Zides, live performances from small venues, studio sessions that never got much attention. He remembered it all, and he wrote about how each piece of music had affected him. It was like getting a review of my entire career from someone whose opinion mattered more to me than any critic. Ozzy's letter continued with advice and encouragement for Slash's future, written with the knowledge that he wouldn't be around to offer guidance in person. He urged Slash to continue pushing musical boundaries, to never lose the enthusiasm that had made their collaboration so special, and to remember that his influence on other musicians was more profound than he realized. He told me to keep being fearless with my music, to never settle for safe choices, Slash shared, clearly trying to memorize every word of advice. He said that my willingness to take risks and try new things was one of my greatest strengths and that the music world needed artists who weren't afraid to evolve and experiment. Coming from someone who had reinvented himself so many times, that advice meant everything. But perhaps the most touching aspect of the letter was Ozzy's expression of gratitude for their friendship and collaboration. He wrote about how their musical partnership had enriched his own art and provided him with some of his most joyful creative experiences, despite the fact that he could only contribute through his voice while Slash created the instrumental magic. He thanked me for reminding him why he loved music, Slash said, his voice heavy with emotion. He said that working with me had been like rediscovering a part of himself that he thought he had lost forever. He wrote that hearing me play guitar made him fall in love with his own voice all over again because heckled hear how well they worked together. The letter also revealed Ozzy's regret about never learning to play an instrument himself, something he had apparently thought about often throughout his career. He wrote about how he had always admired musicians like Slash, who could create magic with their hands, while he could only contribute through his voice and stage presence. He wrote about wishing he had learned to play guitar when he was young, about how he had always been in awe of musicians who could create entire worlds with just their instrument, Slash revealed. But then he said that maybe it was better that he hadn't because it made him appreciate guitarists like me even more. He said that his role as a pure vocalist had allowed him to focus entirely on conveying emotion through his voice. This confession about his relationship with musical instruments added another layer of poignancy to the letter. It revealed a vulnerability in Ozzy that few people had ever seen. The insecurity of a frontman who had built a legendary career without ever mastering an instrument, always dependent on the musical abilities of others to bring his visions to life. Reading about his feelings about not playing instruments made me understand him in a completely new way. Slash said it explained why he was always so appreciative of the musicians he worked with, why he treated guitarists with such respect. He understood that he needed us to complete his musical vision, and he never took that for granted. The letter concluded with Ozzy's hopes for Slash's continued success and happiness, along with a request that would surprise and honor the guitarist. Ozzy asked Slash to continue the tradition of mentoring young musicians, to pass on the enthusiasm and passion that had meant so much to him during their collaborations. He asked me to be for other young musicians what I had unknowingly been for him, Slash revealed, clearly moved by this responsibility. He wanted me to share my love of music with the next generation, to help them maintain their passion and creativity the way I had helped him rediscover his. He said that the music world needed people who could inspire others to keep pushing boundaries. This request has already begun to influence how Slash approaches his interactions with younger artists. He has started taking on more mentoring roles and has become more conscious of how his enthusiasm and experience can inspire others, particularly young guitarists who look up to him the way he once looked up to his own heroes. I never thought of myself as a mentor, but Ozzy's letter made me realize that we all have a responsibility to support the musicians coming up behind us. Slash said, if my passion for music could help someone as accomplished as Ozzy, maybe it can help other artists who are struggling to find their way or maintain their love for what they do. The letter also included Ozzy's thoughts on the future of rock music and his concerns about maintaining the authenticity and passion that had defined the genre for decades. He encouraged Slash to continue being a guardian of rock spirit, to ensure that future generations understood the emotional depth and musical complexity that made rock music so powerful. He wrote about his worries that rock music might lose its soul as the industry changed or revealed. He asked me to help keep the spirit alive, to make sure that young musicians understood that rock isn't just about technical skill. It's about emotion, passion, and connecting with people on a deep level. The impact of receiving Ozzy's final letter has been profound and lasting for Slash. Beyond the immediate emotional response, it has changed how he understands his own role in the music community and the responsibility that comes with his influence and experience. Reading that letter made me realize that our relationships with other musicians are more important than we might think. Reflected, clearly still processing the full meaning of Ozzy's words. We never know who we're inspiring or how our example might help someone else through a difficult period. It's made me more conscious of being positive and supportive in all my professional relationships. Slash's decision to share details about Ozzy's letter publicly was not made lightly. He wrestled with whether to keep the contents private, but ultimately decided that Ozzy's message about the importance of musical brotherhood and mutual support was too valuable to keep to himself. Ozzy's letter wasn't just about our friendship. It was about how musicians can lift each other up and inspire each other to be better. Slash explained, "I think he would want other artists to know about the power of collaboration and mutual respect. His message deserves to be heard, especially by young musicians who might be struggling with their own doubts." The revelation has already begun to change how fans and music historians understand the relationship between different generations of rock musicians. Ozzy's letter demonstrates that even the most established artists continue to learn and grow through their interactions with peers and colleagues, regardless of their different roles in creating music. This letter shows that musical influence flows in all directions, observed rock journalist Lisa Robinson. It's not just young musicians learning from legends. Sometimes the legends are learning just as much from the next generation. Ozzy's honesty about how Slash influenced him reveals the true collaborative spirit of rock and roll. For Slash, carrying the knowledge of how much his friendship meant to Ozzy has become both an honor and a responsibility. He has committed to living up to the example that Ozzy saw in him, continuing to approach music with the passion and fearlessness that had such a profound impact on the Prince of Darkness. "I feel like I have to be worthy of the way Ozzy saw me," Slash said, the weight of this responsibility evident in his voice. "His letter reminded me that my attitude and approach to music affects more people than I realize. It's made me want to be better, not just as a musician, but as a member of the rock and roll community." The letter has also provided Slash with comfort during his grieving process. Instead of focusing solely on the loss of a friend and collaborator, he can celebrate the positive impact their relationship had on both of their lives and careers. "When I miss Ozzy, I read his letter again and remember how much joy our friendship brought him," Slash said, his voice soft with affection. "It helps me focus on the good times and the positive influence we had on each other rather than just feeling sad about what's gone forever. I can hear his voice in those words, and it makes me feel connected to him even though he's gone." The letter has become one of Slash's most treasured possessions, something he keeps in a safe place, but refers to regularly when he needs inspiration or guidance. He has considered having it framed, but prefers to be able to hold the actual paper that Ozzy struggled to write on during his final days. "There's something powerful about holding the actual letter, knowing that he touched this paper, that his hand formed these words despite how difficult it was for him," Slash explained. "It makes the connection feel more real, more tangible. I can almost feel his presence when I read it." Slash's emotional response to Ozzy Osbourne's final letter reveals the depth of connection that can exist between musicians who share a genuine love for their art, even when they express that love through different instruments and roles. The letter serves as a reminder that behind the public personas and rockstar images, these are human beings who support, inspire, and care for each other in profound ways. The tears that Slash couldn't hold back while reading Ozzy's final message were not just tears of grief, but tears of gratitude for a friendship that had enriched both of their lives and contributed to the music that has touched millions of fans around the world. Ozzy's final letter to Slash stands as a testament to the power of musical brotherhood.